A millionaire bride sneered at her groom's simple family until they showed up at the wedding. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. End part 1. The night carried on, and the tension in the air was palpable. Emily tried to mask her discomfort, but each time she glanced at Nicholas' family, she couldn't help but feel like an outsider. The laughter, the gentle hugs, the warmth they shared, all of it felt foreign to her. Her world had always been one of glitz and glamour, where status mattered, where appearances were everything. But here, in this grand ballroom, surrounded by people who didn't fit the mold she had grown up with, Emily felt exposed. Nicholas, standing beside her, appeared completely at ease. His family had become his whole world, and yet to her, they were nothing but reminders of everything she wasn't. The evening continued, guests mingling, some of them casting curious glances toward Nicholas' family. Emily tried to focus on the moment, but her thoughts kept wandering, tugged by the guilt that sat heavily on her chest. She excused herself to the restroom, hoping a brief moment alone might clear her mind. Walking down the corridor, the soft clink of glasses and distant chatter grew fainter with each step. When she reached the bathroom, she closed the door behind her and took a deep breath, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She was supposed to be happy, right? This was the perfect life she had always dreamed of, a man who loved her. A wedding that any woman would envy. But the truth was, she wasn't sure if she could shake this nagging feeling that something was missing. She touched her hair, trying to settle herself, but just as she was about to turn to leave, a knock came at the door. "Emily?" It was Nicholas. His voice sounded soft, hesitant. "Can I come in?" She opened the door, forcing a smile. "Of course." He stepped inside, his face concerned. "You've been gone for a while. Are you okay?" She nodded quickly, not trusting herself to speak. "I'm fine," she said, her voice slightly more strained than she intended. "Just needed a minute." Nicholas watched her for a moment, his eyes searching hers as though trying to figure out what was going on in her mind. "I know this whole thing must be overwhelming for you," he said, his voice gentle, "but they're my family, Em. They might be a little different from what you're used to, but they care about me, and I care about them." Emily swallowed hard. His words, kind and understanding, made her feel even worse. She didn't want to admit it, but the thought of accepting them, of really understanding their world, felt impossible. She had never had to face that kind of challenge before. Everything had always been so easy. She was always in control. But now, in front of her, was a man whose world she didn't quite fit into. "I know," she said, her voice soft. She trailed off, unsure of what to say. Nicholas reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "It's okay," he said. "I don't need you to love them the way I do, but I do need you to try. For me." Emily's heart clenched. This was real. This wasn't some superficial arrangement. Nicholas was asking her to make a choice, one that would shape their future. As she stood there, holding his hand, Emily realized just how much she cared for him. But the path ahead was unclear, and she knew that no matter what, she would have to face her own demons. She couldn't live in a world that was based on appearances. But could she truly step into a life where love wasn't always a given, where hard work and family values took precedence over money and status? The thought terrified her, but she knew one thing for sure. Her world was changing, whether she was ready or not. Back in the ballroom, Nicholas' family was still chatting, laughing together, unaware of the conversation that had just unfolded. Emily took a deep breath and nodded. "I'll try," she whispered, her voice steady. "For you." With that, they left the restroom and returned to the gathering. But something inside Emily had shifted. She was no longer just a woman playing the part of a perfect bride. She was beginning to see a different side of life, one that wasn't about wealth, but about heart. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: this journey would be hers to navigate. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Emily smiled at the guests, even engaged in light conversation with Nicholas's mother and younger brother, trying to connect, to find some understanding. But her thoughts kept returning to what Nicholas had said. She didn't know if she could change, if she could truly accept this life. But one thing she knew for sure was that she couldn't walk away. Not from him, not from what they had, And that realization, though it scared her, was the first step toward finding her place in this new world. The next few days passed in a haze for Emily. The reality of her decision weighed heavily on her, yet she tried to stay focused on the future. Nicholas had been patient, understanding, and more than anything, he had been there for her when she needed him the most. The weeks leading up to their wedding felt like an emotional roller coaster. She found herself learning more about his world than she ever expected, from casual family dinners to trips to the countryside, where life was simpler but filled with warmth. Nicholas's family had welcomed her with open arms, no judgment, just kindness. It was a stark contrast to her own upbringing, where everything was scrutinized, every action carefully measured. As the days passed, Emily's walls began to crack. She still couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider, but she couldn't ignore the pull she felt toward Nicholas's family. They had something she had never known, genuine connection. His mother, his father, his brother. They were all so different from the people she was used to, yet there was a warmth to them that she couldn't deny. Emily found herself looking forward to their Sunday family dinners, where they would all sit around the table, laughing, sharing stories, and just enjoying each other's company. At first, she had been uncomfortable, unsure of what to say or how to act, but now she looked forward to those moments. They were real, unpretentious, and made her feel more like herself than she had in years. As much as Emily tried to deny it, a part of her was starting to change. She was beginning to understand that happiness didn't come from the luxuries she had always known, but from the connections she had never fully appreciated. Nicholas had always been patient with her, never pushing too hard, but always there when she needed him. And then came the day of their wedding, the day that would change everything. The morning was filled with the usual hustle and bustle of preparations, with Emily surrounded by her bridesmaids and family, all of them focused on making sure everything was perfect. But Emily couldn't focus on the details. Her mind kept drifting back to Nicholas's family, to the way they had accepted her despite everything, to the way they had made her feel like she mattered. She had made her decision, but the fear of the unknown still lingered in the back of her mind. Would she ever fully belong in this new world? Would she be able to leave behind the life she had known, the life that had once seemed so important to her? As she stood in front of the mirror, the dress cascading around her, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Her reflection stared back at her, but the woman in the mirror didn't quite feel like herself. She was dressed in opulence, surrounded by luxury, but in her heart, she knew the life she was about to enter was something completely different from the one she had envisioned for herself. As the time approached, the wedding ceremony was just moments away. Emily stood by herself for a moment, taking a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She had made it this far, hadn't she? She had chosen to be here, chosen Nicholas, chosen his family. The decision was hers. And yet, as she stepped out into the aisle, the weight of her choices pressed heavily upon her. The music swelled as she walked toward Nicholas, who was standing at the altar, waiting for her with that look of quiet affection in his eyes. The moment their gazes met, something inside Emily shifted. All of the uncertainty, all of the fear, melted away. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. She was ready to face it with him. As she reached the altar, Nicholas took her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. The ceremony proceeded, the vows exchanged, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Emily allowed herself to fully embrace the moment. It was real. It was hers. And for the first time, she felt like she had found where she truly belonged. After the ceremony, as the guests mingled and the celebration continued, Emily found herself standing next to Nicholas's family, her heart no longer heavy with doubt. She looked at them, their smiles, their warmth, their quiet pride, and realized that this was her new family. Not the one she had grown up with, not the one that had defined her, but the one that she was building now. It was a strange feeling, but in that moment, it felt right. She had found her place, and it wasn't in the world of wealth and luxury she had once known. It was with them, with Nicholas, and with the love they had created together. The days following their wedding were filled with moments of realization and growth for Emily. She had made her choice, but the reality of the life she was now a part of continued to unfold in ways she hadn't expected. Nicholas was everything she had hoped for: kind, patient, and understanding. He never once rushed her into fitting into his world, yet he gently guided her toward accepting it. It was a slow process, but day by day, Emily felt herself changing. The guilt she once carried for her judgments against his family slowly began to dissipate as she spent more time with them. His mother's cooking, the way his father told stories by the fire, his brother's laughter, it all started to feel like something she could treasure, something that wasn't just a part of Nicholas's past, but could become a part of her future too. Emily had always been so focused on what she didn't have, so obsessed with her own fears of inadequacy, but she was beginning to see things differently. One evening, they sat around the dinner table, just the three of them, Nicholas' parents and Emily. His mother had made her favorite dish, a rich stew filled with vegetables and tender meat, and the warmth of the meal wrapped around them like a comforting hug. Nicholas's father was telling one of his old fishing stories, his voice gruff but filled with affection. For the first time in a long while, Emily felt a sense of peace, a feeling she had never truly known. The sense of being at home was something she had always taken for granted, something she had never had to look for until now. She glanced across the table at Nicholas, who caught her eye and smiled. His expression said everything. He was happy, truly happy, and she knew that he wanted her to share that happiness. As the night wore on, Emily found herself laughing more than she had in months, genuinely laughing at his father's stories, teasing Nicholas about his childhood antics, and even discussing future plans for their home. She wasn't thinking about the past anymore, about what she had left behind, or even about her fears. She was simply present in the moment, and that was enough. The next day, Nicholas suggested they take a trip to his family's old cabin by the lake, a place he had spent many summers as a child. Emily was hesitant at first. A weekend away, just the two of them, with his family's history surrounding them, it felt like a lot. But Nicholas, ever the patient man, reassured her. "It's just for a couple of days," he said. "I think it'll be good for us." So they packed their things and headed to the cabin, nestled in a secluded part of the woods, by a serene, quiet lake. The moment they arrived, Emily could feel the pull of the place, the quiet beauty of it. It was simple, with no fancy furnishings or unnecessary luxuries, but it had a charm to it, one that was hard to ignore. The rustic wooden walls, the small kitchen where Nicholas had learned to cook alongside his mother, the fireplace where they would gather on cold evenings, it all felt like a piece of history, a piece of Nicholas's life that she had never fully understood until now. As they spent the weekend there, Emily realized just how much she had been missing by not embracing this side of Nicholas's life. It wasn't about money or status or grand gestures. It was about love, about connection, and about the moments that didn't need to be flashy to be meaningful. They spent their days walking along the lake, talking about their future, and simply enjoying each other's company. By the time they returned to the city, Emily felt a shift inside her, a deep, undeniable shift. She was no longer the woman who had walked down the aisle with fear and doubt. She was someone different now, someone who understood the value of love beyond appearances, who realized that true happiness didn't come from wealth or status, but from the connections you made and the people who cared for you. When they returned home, Nicholas took her hand and looked at her with a softness in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. "I think we're ready," he said, his voice filled with certainty. "Ready for what?" Emily asked, her brow furrowing slightly. Nicholas smiled and pulled her close. "To start our life together, for real this time." And with that, Emily knew he was right. They were ready. She was ready. For the first time in her life, she was ready to build a future not just with Nicholas, but with the family he had given her. The life that was built on love, understanding, and acceptance. It wasn't the life she had imagined, but it was the life she had found, and it was more than enough. As the weeks passed after their trip to the cabin, Emily felt herself settling into her new life, with a sense of calm she had never known before. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments of doubt, but Nicholas had been there every step of the way, offering her the space to grow, to learn, and to embrace the things she had once been so quick to judge. Slowly but surely, she was finding herself becoming part of the world that had once felt foreign to her. The simple joys that his family shared, the unspoken bond between them, and the warmth that seemed to emanate from their everyday lives, all started to become a part of her too. One evening, as they sat by the fire in the living room, Emily looked over at Nicholas, her heart swelling with love for him. He had been everything she needed and more patient, kind, and steadfast in his commitment to her. She realized now that the life she had once thought she wanted, the one filled with luxury and high society, was not the one that truly brought her happiness. It was the simple moments with him, the quiet evenings spent together, the laughter, the shared dreams, that made her feel truly alive. Nicholas was not just her husband, He was her partner, her equal, the person who had shown her what real love looked like. It was a love built on trust, on understanding, and on the willingness to face life's challenges together. She no longer felt the need to measure herself against the world she had come from. She was enough, just as she was. One afternoon, as they were walking through the park near their home, hand in hand, Emily felt a sense of peace wash over her. The sun was shining, the trees were in full bloom, and everything seemed right in the world. Nicholas turned to her with a smile that made her heart flutter, his eyes warm with affection. "You know," he said, his voice soft, "I never thought I would find someone like you." Emily raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a playful smile. "Someone like me?" she asked, teasing him. Nicholas chuckled, the sound deep and rich. "Yeah," he said, "someone who can make me laugh even when everything is going wrong, someone who can brighten even the darkest days." Emily's heart swelled at his words, and she squeezed his hand. "I feel the same way," she replied softly. "I never thought I could find a love like this, a love that feels so real, so true." They continued walking, the quiet hum of the park surrounding them. Emily felt as though everything had come full circle. She had started this journey with doubts, with fears, and with a sense of inadequacy. But now she stood beside the man she loved, feeling more sure of herself than she ever had before. They came to a small bench by the lake, and Nicholas sat down, pulling Emily close beside him. As they watched the ripples on the water, Emily realized just how far she had come. She had found a place where she truly belonged, not because of the money or the status, but because of the love that filled her life. It wasn't about what she had, but who she had. And that was more than enough. "I've been thinking," Nicholas said suddenly, his voice serious, "about the future. About us." Emily turned to look at him, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" she asked. Nicholas looked at her, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I know we've talked about starting a family, and I just want you to know that I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever comes next, with you." Emily's heart skipped a beat at his words, and she felt a rush of emotion. She had always known that Nicholas was the one she wanted to spend her life with, but hearing him say it, hearing him express his readiness for the future, made everything feel even more real. She smiled, her eyes shining. "I'm ready too," she said, her voice filled with certainty. "For everything." They sat in silence for a moment, the future stretching out before them, filled with endless possibilities. Emily knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would face them with Nicholas by her side. Together, they had already built a life that was full of love, and that was all that truly mattered. It wasn't about the wealth, the luxury, or the things that could fade away. It was about the love they had found in each other, and the family they were beginning to create. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Emily leaned her head on Nicholas's shoulder, feeling more at peace than she ever had before. She had found her home, her heart, and her future, and it was with him, always with him. Months passed, and Emily and Nicholas's life together continued to flourish in ways they never imagined. It wasn't always easy, of course. Life had a way of throwing unexpected challenges their way, but each time they faced them side by side, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Nicholas's family had become a true part of Emily's life, and she found herself not only accepting their way of life but truly embracing it. Her previous life of luxury and perfection no longer seemed as important as it once had. The simple moments, the shared laughter, and the quiet moments of connection were what truly mattered. Emily and Nicholas spent their weekends working on the house they had bought together, a modest but beautiful home in the countryside. It wasn't the mansion Emily had once dreamed of, but it was theirs, and it was full of love and warmth. Nicholas was often out in the garden, planting flowers or fixing things around the yard, while Emily spent her afternoons painting, finding peace in the creative process that had always been a part of her, even when she had pushed it aside in pursuit of wealth and success. One afternoon, as they sat on the porch, enjoying a glass of iced tea after a long day of work, Nicholas looked over at Emily with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, his voice calm but full of meaning, "I've been thinking a lot about everything we've been through, about how far we've come." Emily smiled, a warm, knowing smile. "I have too," she replied. "I never thought I'd be here, doing this. I never thought I'd be this happy, you know?" Nicholas chuckled softly, reaching out to take her hand. "I think you're more than just happy," he said, squeezing her fingers gently. "You found peace. You found yourself." Emily looked down at their intertwined hands, feeling the truth of his words deep in her heart. It had taken time, but she had finally found her place, her balance. It wasn't about wealth, about social status, or the things that once defined her. It was about love, about the simple things, about creating a life with Nicholas and his family, a life that was filled with meaning and purpose. "I feel like I found my true self, too," she said quietly, looking into his eyes. "I didn't know I was missing so much until I had this." Nicholas smiled, his eyes soft with affection. "I'm glad we found each other," he said, his voice full of emotion. "I know we're going to build something amazing together, and I'm ready for whatever comes next." Emily leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling a deep sense of contentment wash over her. There was still so much ahead of them, so many dreams to chase, so many adventures to experience, but for the first time, Emily knew she was ready. She wasn't afraid anymore. Life wasn't about living up to expectations or trying to be someone she wasn't. It was about embracing who she had become, about accepting the love that had changed her and learning to give that love back in return. As the days passed, Emily and Nicholas continued to build their life together, stronger than ever. They talked about starting a family, about what the future might hold, and about all the ways they would continue to grow as individuals and as partners. It was a journey they would take together, step by step, hand in hand, with no fears, no regrets. They had everything they needed right there in front of them: love, understanding, and the promise of a future built on the foundation they had created. And with each day that passed, Emily felt more and more certain that the life she had once been so afraid to embrace was exactly the one she had always been meant to live. The love she had found with Nicholas had transformed her, and she had finally found a place where she truly belonged. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was their story, and it was perfect in its own way. And as they sat on the porch that evening, the stars beginning to twinkle in the sky above, Emily knew that they were just getting started. The best was yet to come. As the seasons changed, so did Emily and Nicholas's life together. Their love, once fragile and uncertain, had blossomed into something strong, something unshakable. They had faced the challenges that came with blending their worlds, and through it all, they had emerged more connected than ever. Yet, even as they settled into this new chapter, life had one more surprise in store for them. It all started one crisp autumn morning. Emily was in the garden, planting flowers that would bloom in the spring, when Nicholas walked out with a look on his face that told her something was different. "You okay?" she asked, brushing her hands off on her jeans as she turned to face him. Nicholas hesitated for a moment before answering. "I think it's time we made our dream a reality," he said, his voice calm but filled with conviction. Emily raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "What dream?" she asked, her heart already racing. Nicholas took a deep breath, a slow smile forming on his lips. "The one we've been talking about for months, about starting a family." The words hung in the air between them, and Emily felt a wave of emotions rush over her. She had always known this day would come, but hearing it out loud, hearing Nicholas speak of their future together in such a concrete way, made everything feel so real. "I've been thinking about it too," she said softly, stepping toward him, her hands reaching for his. "I'm ready." She felt his grip tighten around her hands, his warmth comforting her as they stood there in the garden, facing the future together. For a long time, Emily had feared the idea of commitment, of bringing a child into the world. But with Nicholas by her side, she realized that she was no longer afraid. She had built a life with him, one that was full of love, respect, and deep connection. Together, they could handle whatever life threw their way. Over the next few weeks, they began to take the steps toward making their dream a reality. They spoke with doctors, read books, and started making plans for the future. Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement building within her as she thought about the family they would one day have. They had already created a home full of love, but now they were about to bring a new life into it, a new chapter to their story. One afternoon, as they sat in the living room discussing their future plans, Nicholas turned to Emily with a serious look on his face. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Emily's heart skipped a beat as she looked at him. "What's wrong?" she asked, her concern evident in her voice. Nicholas took a deep breath before continuing. "I've been thinking about how far we've come, about everything we've built together, and I realized something," he said, pausing for a moment to gather his thoughts. "I don't want to take anything for granted. I want to make sure we're prepared for this, for the family we're going to build." Emily looked at him, her eyes filled with understanding. "We're already prepared," she said softly. "We've been preparing for this every day, just by being together." Nicholas smiled, his expression softening, "I know," he said, his voice full of warmth. "I just want to make sure we're ready in every way possible." The conversation continued, but Emily's mind kept drifting to the idea of their future, to the life they were about to create together. She realized that, no matter how uncertain the world seemed, she and Nicholas had built something beautiful, a love that would stand the test of time. And with that love, they could conquer anything. Weeks turned into months, and Emily found herself growing more and more excited about the idea of becoming a mother. She could see the way Nicholas would look at her when they talked about their future children, his eyes filled with hope and anticipation. It wasn't just about creating a family, it was about creating a legacy of love, of understanding, and of support. As they sat together one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues of pink and orange, Emily rested her head on Nicholas's shoulder, feeling more content than she ever had before. "I think we're ready," she said quietly, her voice filled with certainty. "For everything." Nicholas smiled, his arms wrapping around her as they watched the sky fade into night. "I couldn't agree more," he said, his voice soft with emotion. In that moment, Emily realized that they had everything they needed. They had each other, a love that had already weathered so much, and a future that was theirs to create. The journey ahead was filled with unknowns. But with Nicholas by her side, Emily knew she was ready to face whatever came next. Their love was the foundation of everything they had built, and with that foundation, they were unstoppable. The future was wide open, and for the first time, Emily felt truly free to embrace it, knowing that whatever happened, she and Nicholas would face it together. Time seemed to stretch and speed up all at once, as if the universe was both giving them space to grow and pushing them forward toward their destiny. Emily and Nicholas had settled into a rhythm that felt comfortable, natural, and full of promise. They had talked for months about starting a family, but there was still a sense of anticipation in the air, as if they were standing on the edge of something life-changing. Nicholas had always been there for her, through every doubt, every moment of uncertainty. But now, as they both stepped into the future together, there was a sense of calm that Emily couldn't ignore. It wasn't about being ready in the traditional sense, it was about knowing, deep in her heart, that this was the next step they were meant to take. One morning, as they sat at the kitchen table over a cup of coffee, Emily's eyes drifted to the window, where the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft glow across the sky. Nicholas was reading the newspaper, his brow furrowed in concentration, but Emily couldn't help but feel a deep sense of contentment as she watched him. He had always been there, always been the steady, calm presence she needed in her life. It wasn't about the money, the house, or even the things they had accumulated. It was about the moments they shared, the quiet mornings, the long walks, and the simple yet profound way their love had grown. "Do you ever think about how much we've changed?" Emily asked, breaking the silence. Nicholas looked up from his newspaper, meeting her gaze with a soft smile. "I think about it all the time," he said, his voice gentle. "But I don't think it's about change, it's about becoming who we were always meant to be." Emily's heart swelled at his words. He had a way of making everything seem so simple, so clear, and yet so profound. She had always struggled with the idea of change, of stepping out of her comfort zone, but with him by her side, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I used to be so afraid," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Afraid of losing myself, of becoming someone I didn't recognize." Nicholas reached across the table, his hand finding hers, warm and steady. "You've never lost yourself, Emily," he said softly. "You've just discovered the person you were always meant to be." There was a tenderness in his voice that made Emily's heart ache with love. She had spent so many years trying to fit into a world that wasn't her own, trying to live up to expectations that didn't align with who she truly was. But now, with Nicholas, she felt like she was finally finding her place in the world. The idea of having a family, of building a life together that wasn't defined by wealth or status, felt like the most beautiful and freeing thing she could imagine. As the days passed, they continued to move forward with their plans. They spoke about the kind of parents they wanted to be, the values they wanted to instill in their children, and the kind of life they wanted to create together. It wasn't just about having a child, it was about creating a home, a space where love and kindness were the foundations of everything they did. One evening, as they sat in front of the fireplace, the warmth of the fire dancing in the background, Nicholas turned to Emily, his expression serious but filled with excitement. "What do you think?" he asked, his voice filled with anticipation. Emily looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "About what?" she asked, feeling a spark of excitement herself. Nicholas smiled, his eyes filled with hope. About starting our family now, about making this dream real. Emily took a deep breath, her thoughts swirling as she looked into his eyes. There was no hesitation, no doubt in her heart. She had never been more certain of anything in her life. "I'm ready," she said softly, her voice full of conviction. "For everything." Nicholas's face lit up with a smile so full of love that Emily's heart swelled. They didn't need to say anything more. The future was theirs to create, and with each other by their side, they knew they were ready to face whatever came next. The journey ahead would be full of challenges, but they would face them together with love, patience, and an unwavering belief in the life they had built. And so, as the fire crackled and the stars began to appear in the sky outside, Emily and Nicholas knew that this was just the beginning. The best was yet to come. As the weeks passed, Emily and Nicholas's life seemed to grow even more beautiful, more purposeful, with each passing day. The decision to start their family felt like the natural next step, and every conversation, every plan they made, solidified their vision for the future. They were more than ready. They were aligned, deeply connected, and their love for each other was the foundation of everything they were about to build together. Emily's heart swelled with excitement at the thought of becoming a mother, a thought that had once terrified her. She had come so far from the woman who feared commitment and changed to someone who now embraced both with open arms. Her life with Nicholas had transformed her in ways she never imagined possible. It wasn't about wealth, status, or the expectations of others anymore. It was about love, about the family they were creating, and about the future they were going to share. Their home, which had once been a reflection of Emily's carefully curated life, had become a true sanctuary for both of them. It was simple, warm, and full of life. Every corner of their home held memories, the laughter they shared while cooking together in the kitchen, the quiet evenings spent reading or talking, the garden they tended to together, planting seeds of love and hope for the future. And now they were preparing to welcome a child into that warmth. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the hills, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over her. The road they had walked together had not always been easy, but every challenge had brought them closer. And now, standing on the precipice of starting a family, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. "I can't believe how far we've come," Emily said softly, her voice filled with emotion. Nicholas turned to her, his expression filled with tenderness, and took her hand in his. "We've come a long way, but we've done it together. And together, we can face anything." Emily smiled at him, her heart swelling with love. "I'm so glad I found you," she whispered. "I never knew this kind of happiness was possible." Nicholas kissed her hand gently, his eyes filled with warmth. "And I'm glad I found you. We're going to build something incredible together. A family, a future, everything we've ever dreamed of." As the days turned into weeks, Emily's excitement grew. Their home was filled with preparations, nursery colors, baby names, and the quiet thrill of anticipation. Emily had never imagined she would be here, in this life, with this man, ready to take on the biggest adventure of all, parenthood. But with Nicholas by her side, it felt right. Everything felt right. One morning, as they were going through baby clothes and sorting through the gifts they had received, Emily looked at Nicholas with a smile that spoke volumes. "Can you believe it?" she asked, her voice full of awe. "We're about to become parents." Nicholas chuckled, his eyes soft with affection. "I can't wait," he said. "We're going to be great at this. We've already proven that we're a great team." Emily's heart fluttered at his words. It was true. They had been through so much together, and each challenge, each hurdle, had only made their relationship stronger. As she looked around their home, at the life they had built, she knew with certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. The journey they had started together was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The thought of raising a child together, of building a family based on the love they had for each other, filled her with a sense of purpose she had never known before. And so, as the seasons changed, as their home grew even more full of love and laughter, Emily and Nicholas knew that they had everything they needed to build the life they had always dreamed of. The future was wide open, and they were ready to walk through it, hand in hand, facing whatever challenges came their way, with love, patience, and the unshakable bond they had formed. They were a family now, and nothing could ever change that. And as they waited for the arrival of their little one, they knew that the best was yet to come.